Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much to Univers Swiftnet to give us the opportunity to talk about this wonderful country, which is India. So today we will talk about the cash management market in India and its specificities. So starting with the presentation of Crédit Agricole, maybe since we are belonging with Ayush and myself, Dominique Honoré, to Crédit Agricole CIB. So first of all, Crédit Agricole Group is one of the 10th largest bank worldwide due to its asset size. We have a strong rating of A+. We have secured our position as a leading bank and leading in France and the top bank insurer provider in Europe, as well as the top Europe asset manager. We also have a strong focus on sustainability, which is part of our really main missions. And we can just quote that we are world's #1 in a green bond arranger. So today we are talking about Asia, and Crédit Agricole always had a strong focus on Asia, being present in most of those countries in Asia and especially in India. So we are in India since 1981. We rank amongst the top foreign banks in this large country. We do have 5 branches in Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, and Pune. And we have 115 employees in this country. So talking about cash management, we have a strong ambition to be a domestic cash management bank in India, to be able to support our clients who want to develop their activity in this country. Maybe more globally, we are engaged in a large cash management transformation project, which aims at providing a state-of-the-art solution to our clients, not only in France, in Europe, but everywhere where they have operations. And we have 2 regional focus with Europe and Asia, and India being one of the countries where we want to be a comprehensive bank with a local cash management offering. So we have been revamping this offering, given the push of India to develop a large digitization solutions to this market. We had to adapt to it, and now maybe I will give the floor to Ayush to introduce what are this landscape in India and how we have been able to adapt to this new landscape to offer a really real-time offer and very sophisticated cash management offer in India. Ayush, I leave you the floor.
Thank you, Dominique. So just to introduce myself, I'm Ayush Srivastav. I look at product development for transaction banking for Crédit Agricole in India. What I want to cover today is broadly what are the key drivers which have led to the rapid pace of digitization in India. We'll get into a bit more detail around these drivers. What we'll also cover is how have these drivers then impacted cash management for corporates, especially multinational clients. Also, how is Crédit Agricole adapting towards these changes, and what is our offer looking like? Now, like most of you would be aware, India has moved at quite a fast pace on the digitization roadmap. Now, if you look at, let's say, a decade back, most of the transactions were on checks, paper. Only very few electronic clearing methods were there in India, and the traction was not that great for electronic payments. So the question that we have to ask is what really changed in these last 10 years, which has really accelerated the pace of digitization in India. So if we look at it, there's a full foundation that has been delivered by the various governments that have been there in the last few years. A very important technology item was deployed a few years back, which is what we call the India Stack. And that is what we'll talk about a bit, because that really sets the base for how this entire digitization was done. So what does the India Stack really mean? So it's essentially a platform, a digital platform that the government has implemented over many years. It's not an overnight thing, which essentially aims to convert any interaction that you do. Let's say you're signing a contract or making a payment or opening a bank account. So they are setting up a complete base wherein each step of this process can be made completely digital. So what are the various layers of this India Stack? So there are four main layers. One is what we call a presenceless layer. Now, what does presenceless mean? That without you being actually physically present in a particular location, we should be able to validate your presence. Or so, for example, if you are opening an account, you go to a bank. Now you have to be physically present over there. So how do you take away the physical presence while leaving everything in place? So that is what is called the presence layer, the presenceless layer. So that's the first one. And I'll tell you how each of these were addressed. The second main layer that was digitized is the paperless layer, is what is called the paperless layer. So now once you are at a bank, let's say, you've validated through some identity that you are there. Now you have to sign certain documents. Now this entire contract signing or documentation signing has also been digitized, and I'll get into the details as well for this. The third main layer that has been implemented is what is called the cashless layer. So without, so basically having some new systems in place by which making payments and collections becomes so easy that it becomes the default method rather than exchanging physical cash. And the fourth layer that has been implemented is what is called the consent layer, by which, let's say, if you've already done your KYC with one particular bank, you've put in all the effort of doing your KYC with one particular entity. Why can't the other banks or the other organizations just take the information from there, basis your consent? So these are the four main layers that have been set up, and we'll get into slide 5 to understand the details on how each of these were addressed. Now, before getting into the layers, what is also important to understand is there were three main elements that have helped this digitization process. One is that over the last few years, there has been a huge push on opening accounts for each and every person in India through a special campaign, which is called Jan Dhan campaign, basically allowing zero balance accounts to be opened for anyone. Banks could not say no for account opening for any person who walks in. That has helped up tremendously increase the penetration of bank accounts in India. The second main enabler of this entire stack was something called an Aadhaar registration. So similar to how you have a social security registration in the US and possibly in Europe as well, each person in India was given a unique identifier. It's a particular number called an Aadhaar number. And to create this Aadhaar number, first you have to submit all your documents so that your validation is done. And you also have to submit your biometrics. So essentially the government through this database has access to your data, your biometrics and your KYC details. The third main penetration which has helped in India is the mobile penetration. Like you would know, for the huge population that is there, the smartphone and internet, the 4G or 3G penetration is at par with most of the developed nations right now. So these three enablers have helped in putting this stack that I talk about in place. So let's start with the first element of the stack, the presenceless layer. So without you being present, how do you validate someone? So the Aadhaar number that I was just mentioning. Now, if since in the Aadhaar registration your fingerprints or your mobile number was there, by just touching your thumb on a particular scanner or by validating yourself through a one-time password which comes to your mobile phone, you can actually validate that you are present somewhere, that you are actually doing this transaction. So that was solved. So this presenceless layer was solved by this particular Aadhaar database that was set up. The second layer, which we talked about, the paperless layer, wherein once you have established that it is you who's initiating this transaction, you need to sign certain terms and conditions. So being able to provide an e-signature. So the Aadhaar or the UIDAI, it's also called as Unique Identification Authority of India. the Aadhaar or the UIDAI also encapsulates the e-signature. So you can sign a document which is there online simply by entering your Aadhaar number. You will get an OTP. You enter that OTP as well, and that document is then considered as signed. So this paperless layer was also solved using the Aadhaar database. Now the cashless layer is where which required a huge change, I would say, because it's more of while various entities can provide you all the clearing systems there are, but to increase the usage is where the biggest challenge comes. But India, as you would be aware, has one of the most advanced real-time payment systems in India, which is called Unified Payments Interface. This was launched a few years back by the payment system in India called National Payments Corporation of India. This has seen a tremendous traction, and I would cover in the next slide the kind of volumes that we are seeing on UPI. Essentially, it has replaced most of the credit card or cash transactions or debit card transactions that you would usually do in India. And the growth has shown that this is actually the case. And now it's as easy to make a payment to another person. So you don't need to know the account number of the other person. As long as you have their mobile number or a very easy to remember virtual address, you can make a payment to that person, or you can even ask for funds from the other person. So it has both a payments leg as well as a request to pay kind of a leg. So this cashless layer was addressed by providing a very easy to use clearing interface called Unified Payments Interface. There were also other clearings which are still gaining some traction. There have been a few regulatory challenges in implementing it as well. Something called an Aadhaar-based transfer. Essentially, you can, so let's say you walk into a store, there will be a digital fingerprint scanner over there. You touch that fingerprint scanner with your thumb. The entire authentication on the back end is done. That what is your bank account number? You've given your fingerprint over there, so there's an authentication for you to debit that account. So seamlessly your account gets debited and the merchant's account gets credited. It ran into a few issues though on the regulatory side, so this has been kept on hold a bit. But essentially, a lot of new clearing systems have been developed. The most successful of which has been UPI. Now, fourth is the consent layer that we spoke about, wherein it became very easy to transfer your KYC details from one entity to the other. So simple things like if you already have a bank account with one person, with one bank, you can just walk into another bank and give all your details online, and your KYC details will be pulled from the other bank through a consent interface using the Aadhaar infrastructure. So this entire stack is what has actually driven the digitization in India. So right from signing simple contracts, could be a property papers, to opening broking accounts. So just to give you an example, I opened a new broking account with one of the online brokers. It was a 5-minute process. I went online, I entered my Aadhaar number, the UIDAI number that I mentioned. It validated who I was. It got my KYC details from the Aadhaar database that I had already given. They did a short video call to identify that it was a live person that is opening the account, and everything was done within a few minutes, and the account was actually open. So that's how simple it has become. And to transfer funds into this broking account, all I had to do was just do a simple UPI transfer from my bank account to this broker, and my account was funded, and I was ready to buy any stocks that I wanted. So that's how simple account opening or basic payments have become in India. Now, how has this impacted payments now, which is what I've covered in slide 6. So till a few years back, the main electronic payment systems were what is there in the bottom of the slide, which is NEFT, which is the standard electronic funds transfer system in India. It doesn't have any restrictions on value. So it's the most commonly used clearing system in India. So NEFT used to be the mainstay of electronic payments. Now, since the last, I would say 5 or 6 years, you have had new clearing systems, like I mentioned. So the real-time payments have really picked up traction. And as you can see, UPI has now far surpassed all of the other payment systems combined. So that's the kind of growth that we are seeing on UPI. It has even surpassed credit cards and debit cards, which earlier used to be the mainstay of retail transactions. In fact, we are also seeing a huge uptake on UPI for corporate transactions as well, largely lower value transactions because there is a limit of INR 200,000 on real-time payments. But for B2C collections, it's actually, there's been a huge traction on UPI payments. Now, while all this is good, I mean, now we have a background on how what has been the driver for digitization in India. How does it really impact a multinational corporate, let's say in India? Now I'll focus on multinational corporates because that is what this audience would largely be from. Now, three main, I would say, drivers or the impact has been on three fronts, I would say. One, like I mentioned, the older clearing systems are not the leading clearing systems anymore. So if let's say you've done an integration with a bank and largely you've focused on the traditional clearing systems, that is not sufficient enough for you to collect all your monies from your customers, both in the B2B space and in the B2C space, so retail and corporate space. The collections have shifted tremendously towards UPI. Um, uh, just as an example, anyone can walk to let's say, operating a supermarket store, and a customer can buy some stuff, walk into the counter using his mobile phone, which is a retail side of it, but the corporate is the supermarket in this case. They can scan a QR code at the counter and make a payment using UPI, and it's an immediate process. Within seconds, the cashier comes to know that a payment has been made. Similarly, in a utility bill kind of a collection, so for example, a telecom company, they've been sending requests to pay messages over the UPI interface. So the consumers get a message saying you have a bill of so and so amount pending tomorrow. Do you want to make a payment? And the person can just reply back saying yes, enter his PIN, and the payment would be effected. So on the collection side, UPI has seen a huge traction, like I said, both on the retail as well as corporate side. So that's one key shift which has been there. The second shift has been on so the entire electronification which has happened of payments and centralization which has happened has actually leveled the playing field for foreign banks in India, or smaller banks in India, I would say, because we are not dependent on branch presence anymore. Earlier, what was the differentiator was how many branches you had, because you could then affect clearing of checks in those areas, because clearing happened on a statewide basis or a citywide basis. Now everything is centralized. So with even a single branch, a bank can manage all clearing systems in the country. And the differentiator which used to be there between a bank with, let's say, thousands of branches compared to a bank with, let's say, only 5 branches like ours used to be huge. But now this divide has been completely narrowed. Or in fact, of having a branch presence doesn't really make any difference for electronic payments and collection, which is the mainstay right now. What is important though is that the bank is connected to all the latest clearing systems and is able to offer the corporates access to all the payment methods available for the consumer to make a payment to him. So that is the second key trend which is happening. The third key trend is also a regulatory directive. Now banks are open 24/7 for electronic payments and collections. Previously, only real-time payments, which is your IMPS and UPI, were available 24/7. Over the last few months, the Reserve Bank of India has made the traditional or the earlier payment systems, NEFT and RTGS, which is the National Electronic Funds Transfer and the real-time gross settlement, the two main clearing systems in India. These have also been made into a 24/7 clearing system. So what that means is the bank is open 24/7, which means the corporate can do business 24/7. So all systems on the bank side, the banks were forced to in fact make this change. It was not an easy task for banks to meet this directive, but we're happy to say that a lot of banks, including Crédit Agricole, are now offering our services 24/7 for online payments and collections. There has been, now moving on, so while these are the three key trends, we are also seeing a lot of evolutions on the regulatory space happening, and this also has an impact on the way corporates are doing business in India. Now, one is there has been a huge focus by the government in India on localizing the payments data. Now, you might have heard a lot of entities, including Google, WhatsApp, were in discussions, and foreign banks as well were in discussions with the Reserve Bank of India and the government on this directive of localizing the payments data in India. So essentially, no payments data, and there's a definition of payments data, can be stored overseas. If it is stored overseas, it has to be deleted by the end of the day, and the database has to be only in India. So this directive was in fact a huge, required a huge change from banks as well as other payment service providers. But again, banks have shown their commitment to the country, including Crédit Agricole, and we've completely localized our domestic payment system to comply with the guidelines. So it actually further reinforces the kind of commitment that the group has in India. The other regulatory directive which has impacted banking and cash management is a very important circular which came out a few months back on what kind of accounts can corporates open in India. Essentially saying that if you have already availed lending from a particular bank, you have to mandatorily use that bank for your current account. So you can't really go around shopping for opening accounts with multiple banks, depending on your convenience. So essentially, what this means is now you have to choose your primary banker as your main cash management banker as well. What this also means is that the bank should be a full service bank for you. So if you are, let's say, using Crédit Agricole, we should be able to provide you all the services, because you'll be restricted in terms of opening an account with another bank, because they may not be offering you the kind of lending, let's say, that our bank is providing you. So these are the filters which have to be put in place. Your primary lending bank becomes your primary cash management bank as well, which again makes it more important that the bank is able to offer you all the services. Now, while this might seem like a regressive policy, or it might have had an impact on the way companies do business in India, but there's a silver lining to it as well. Corporates are now looking at rationalization of the bank accounts. Earlier, if they had accounts with Indian banks plus a foreign bank, let's say a multinational company had accounts with Indian banks for certain payments and a foreign bank for certain payments, now they have to ensure that all payments go through the main lending bank, which could be the foreign bank. The trend that we are seeing is this has actually helped multinational corporates use the benefits of a foreign bank for, I would say, integrating India into their overall payments landscape. So, for example, a lot of corporates have started using us on the SWIFT network. So earlier, since they had multiple banks, a lot of which may not have supported SWIFT, it was not possible. But now with corporates having streamlined their banking network or the banking provider in India, since let's say, are banking with only one foreign bank, it's much easier to include the Indian account and the Indian entity as part of the overall payment factory setup globally. So that's one positive direction that we have seen in the last few months. The third trend that we are seeing is a lot of digitization is happening on the cross-border side, on the foreign currency payment side. As you might be aware, cross-border payments were highly regulated in India. You had to show documents to prove that this was actually a bona fide payment, and the bank was liable to check everything before processing that. So this broke down the entire process. Now, the government has taken a lot of steps in making this entire information available online. So now if, let's say, a corporate does an import and the ship docks into the port, the minute it docks into the port, there is a database which is provided by the government, which contains all the details of the shipment, which is called a bill of entry. So the corporates don't need to submit certain documents which earlier they had to do via scans or via paper. In addition, banks have put in processes which leverages this database. It's called an import database called IDPMS. So banks have integrated this IDPMS database, which provides all the bill of entry details with the banking systems, with the front-end banking systems, to provide a completely online and automated channel for cross-border payments. As Crédit Agricole has also implemented the same for our cash management clients, and we also have a completely online and automated process for cross-border payments, which does not require any scans or even any documents to be attached while making the payment. All you have to do is just provide certain details, which earlier would have been supported via document scanning. Instead of that, you just provide certain additional details, and the payment will get processed by validating it against the import database provided by the government. So this is also a key change which is happening. The final one which I want to talk about is the entire real-time connectivity, which has seen a lot of traction in the last few years, I would say, because of all the real-time payment systems developing. Corporates are also seeing the benefits of connecting with the bank over a real-time, using a real-time connectivity such as API. Previously, API was used largely by financial institutions, let's say an asset manager or a mutual fund company or an insurance company, to be notified about funds as soon as it is received. But lately, we are seeing corporates also using it for their regular payments and collections. In the multinational corporate space, it's still picking up traction, but it's expected to be a key item in the next few years as well. So these are, I would say, the main trends that we have witnessing in the cash management space in India, driven by the entire digitization that was done by the government. So in India, what we have done is we have deployed a completely new cash management platform, which is connected to all the domestic clearing systems in India. What we also offer is, in addition to the robust payments platform that we have in India, we also have our standardized front-end offering, which is the same across any country in the globe where Crédit Agricole operates. So the advantages of having a common front-end for all our cash management clients is available. For paper collections and payments, we have tied up with the largest Indian banks so as to complete the entire payments and collections product suite. We also provide a range of implementation and integration services through dedicated service managers and implementation managers to help in the entire onboarding process. Just to give a quick snapshot of the various products that we offer. Now, like I mentioned, we have a host of collections, payments, and liquidity, as well as connectivity options available for our corporates. On the collection side, we have a state-of-the-art e-collections platform available, which helps corporates to collect via any payment method, be it direct debits, which is called ACH or automated clearing house in India, or using the real-time payment systems called IMPS and UPI. We also support requests to pay for UPI. And on the foreign currency side, we have a seamless process for crediting any foreign currency inwards into a client's account. On the electronic payment side, we offer all the payments that are there in India, including supplier, salary payments, as well as government payments, plus real-time payments. So through a single connectivity with Crédit Agricole, you can do all your payments and collections through us, including taxes. In terms of connectivity options, we have our online banking, as well as our host-to-host services available. Lately, we have seen a lot of traction, like I mentioned, on our SwiftNet offering, both on Fin and Filac, because of the regulatory changes that I mentioned, which have helped in this connectivity. We also have a host of reporting functionalities available for greater visibility and better monitoring from an head office perspective. So that's a quick snapshot of the Crédit Agricole transaction banking business in India. Thank you for attending this webinar.
Maybe a last question, Ayush, on this. So as a conclusion, so would you say that India is much more advanced in terms of real-time and digitized cash management solutions than other countries in Asia or than in Europe? Well, for Europe, I would say yes, definitely. But they've made some significant progress in terms of this modernization of the cash management solutions. At least it is the impression.
Yes, you're right, Dominique. So, in fact, UPI, which we covered, is I would say is much more advanced than most of the other clearing systems available, whether in Asia or globally, primarily because of two functionalities. One is what we spoke about, wherein you don't need to know the other person's account number. Using some proxy identifiers like mobile numbers and virtual addresses, you are able to make payments. So that has really helped in the entire traction. And second, the request to pay functionality has really helped on the collection side. In fact, in a recent study that RBI did to benchmark the payment systems across the globe, they found that that India was number one in terms of the year-on-year growth seen on payment systems. So which clearly is a result of the easy clearing systems which have been implemented for people to use.
Okay. So many thanks, Ayush, for this detailed presentation of the Indian landscape, and we hope that we will find lots of French companies in India very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominique.
It often begins with an idea, a dream, a simple intention, a desire to act, to find new solutions. In a world that is open, but sometimes uncertain, it requires intelligence, energy, and passion. And then it happens that some of these ideas become reality, and that they change the world. Even today, in companies large or small, public or private, there are thousands of ideas that deserve to be partnered and financed, so that these ideas can become projects, and these projects become reality. Thus, in over 30 countries, 7,300 employees of Crédit Agricole CIB go out to meet those who are putting forward these ideas, for which they, in turn, come up with innovative solutions, so that these companies can develop, access new markets, and ensure their own sustainable growth and performance. Today, hand in hand with the economy, the bank has developed a recognized know-how in the fields of financing, investment, and markets to provide its customers with both the skills and the security required to make socially beneficial projects a reality. Because the mission of the women and men of Crédit Agricole CIB is very simple. It's to make things possible.